In ancient Egypt, Geb was more than a god. He was the earth itself, the ground beneath every step, the source of all life and wealth. Egyptians saw Geb in the fertile soil, the stones of their monuments and the bounty of their harvests. Depicted reclining beneath the sky, Geb was the stable foundation of the world, his laughter rumbling as earthquakes. His green skin symbolized vegetation, and the goose atop his head marked his name. Geb's story is woven into Egypt's creation, his union with Nut shaping the universe. Join us as we explore the god who was the very land of Egypt, Geb, the eternal earth. Geb's story begins in the Heliopolitan Ennead, the divine family at the heart of Egyptian creation. Born from Shu, air, and Tefnut, moisture, Geb was the first solid ground making life possible. He and his twin, Nut the sky, were once inseparable until their father Shu separated them, creating earth below, sky above, and air between. This act brought order to chaos, establishing the world's structure. Geb's body became the stage for all life, his union with Nut producing Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys, the next generation of gods. As Earth itself, Geb was the foundation of existence. His story is the story of creation, balance, and the birth of the world. Geb's influence reached beyond myth into Egyptian society and kingship. Pharaohs were called heir of Geb, grounding their rule in divine authority. Geb was the first king, passing the throne to Osiris, setting the precedent for royal succession. Egyptians honored Geb in fields and funerary rites, seeing the earth as his temple. He was the source of all life, wealth, and stability, a god present in every harvest and every stone. To understand Egypt is to understand Geb, the living land, and the eternal provider. The Ennead of Heliopolis explained the universe through a divine family tree. Atum created Shu and Tefnut, who in turn birthed Geb and Nut, earth and sky. Geb's role as earth was immediate and essential, connecting the elements of air and moisture to the physical world. Egyptians saw this cosmic family in every breath, every drop of dew, and every step on solid ground. Geb's identity was inseparable from his lineage. Son of air, brother of sky, foundation of creation. His passive strength and fertility defined the world's stability. Geb was the cornerstone of the Egyptian cosmos, linking gods, nature, and humanity. In the beginning, Geb and Nut were locked in a loving embrace, earth and sky as one. Their union was fertile but chaotic, leaving no space for life. Shu, their father, separated them. Nut arched above as the sky, Geb lay below as the earth. The space between became the world's breath, and Geb's tears formed the rivers and seas. Their separation brought order, making room for gods and mortals. Geb became the fertile ground, Nut the starry vault above, forever reaching for each other. Their story explains the world's structure and the eternal bond between earth and sky. The separation of Geb and Nut allowed life to begin, demonstrated by the birth of their children. These children were four of the most important deities in the Egyptian pantheon. From Geb and Nut came Osiris, Set, Isis, and Nephthys. They governed the human world, order, chaos, life, and death. Osiris was destined for greatness, embodying order and justice. Isis, a goddess of immense power, was the model wife and mother. Set was the god of chaos, and Nephthys associated with mourning. The struggle between Osiris and Set became a central myth. This saga unfolds upon Geb, the stage for divine conflict. As their father, Geb's importance was continuously reinforced. The earth was the body of the father of the most revered gods. Long before pharaohs, the gods ruled. Geb, god of earth, reigned during a golden age of peace and prosperity. His rule established the concept of monarchy, with the land belonging to the ruler. Geb later passed the kingship to Osiris, marking a transition to gods engaged with human society. Geb's reign became a benchmark for pharaohs to emulate. Geb, the embodiment of the earth, held a fundamental role in the Egyptian pantheon. Every plain and mountain was part of his divine body, transforming the landscape into a sacred entity. Geb's domain was the source of all material wealth, including the fertile soil and precious minerals. This divine identity gave Geb a powerful aspect. Earthquakes were believed to be his laughter. Geb was the ultimate provider and foundation of existence, his divinity immediate and undeniable. The Egyptians crafted a worldview where humanity lived in partnership with this divine being. Geb's symbolism is tied to his role as the earth god. His skin, often green or black, represents vegetation and the Nile's fertile silt. Plants sprouting from his body illustrate his role as the source of life. Farmers interacted with Geb, entrusting their sustenance to him. Geb, the green man of the Nile, embodies life, renewal and abundance for the Egyptians. Geb was closely associated with the goose, often depicted with it on his head. The goose was linked to creation myths, sometimes laying the cosmic egg. Another animal linked to Geb was the serpent. Geb was sometimes referred to as the father of snakes. These animals were living symbols of Geb, representing his creative power and dominion over the earth. Geb is almost universally depicted as a man lying down, stretched out along the ground. This posture symbolizes his identity as the earth, stable and foundational. In famous scenes, Geb is part of the divine triad with Nut and Shu. These images communicate the creative potential between earth and sky. As a former king, Geb is sometimes enthroned, wearing a royal crown, emphasizing his authority. These depictions were theological statements, encapsulating complex cosmological ideas. In the primordial dawn, the ancient Egyptians envisioned a universe of immense potential but lacking form. Geb and Nut existed in unbroken unity, their embrace so complete that no light could penetrate. This primal union represented undifferentiated chaos, unable to support life. Their affection prevented the sun from rising and their children from being born. This highlighted the importance of duality and separation in creating a balanced cosmos, Ma'at. Geb and Nut needed to be distinct for the world to function. The earth and sky had to be parted. Their loving entanglement prevented life from beginning, requiring a third divine force to separate the inseparable. Shu, the god of air, separated his entangled children Geb and Nut, establishing cosmic order. This separation is a frequently depicted scene showcasing Shu as a strong figure holding them apart. He created the celestial vault and solidified the earth, transforming chaos into a habitable cosmos. Shu became the sustainer of the world, maintaining separation and preventing cosmic collapse, a reminder of creation. This act was the ultimate expression of Ma'at, triumphing over chaos and shaping the world for life. The separation of Geb and Nut had emotional and physical consequences, explaining natural phenomena. Geb's sorrowful tears formed the world's waters. Nut became the cosmos, swallowing the sun at dusk and birthing it at dawn. Their enduring love remained a powerful force, with Geb's longing symbolized in art. The world became a testament to their unending connection. Their division wove into the natural world, turning geography and astronomy into a divine love story. The myth of Geb and Nut had a profound impact, providing an explanation for the structure of their universe. It answered basic questions of existence. This story shaped the Egyptian perception of their place within the cosmos. The separation defined Geb's role as the receiver of the dead. Similarly, Nut's role as the sky goddess offered a metaphor for rebirth. Ultimately, the myth was more than just a creation story. It became one of the most enduring symbols of ancient Egypt. Geb, the earth god, held a profound role in ancient Egyptian funerary beliefs. Burial was a sacred entrustment to Geb, the master of the earth as a vast tomb. He was the receiver of the dead, essential for the soul's afterlife journey. Tombs were gateways to Geb's realm. Geb's dual nature connected life and death as part of the cosmic cycle. The pyramid texts promised Geb's protection for the deceased king, ensuring his body's preservation for resurrection. Burial within Geb's body shielded the deceased, preparing them for rebirth into the Duat, with Geb as the silent guardian. So Geb's presence was not just a passive concept in funerary beliefs, he was actually an active participant, invoked during critical rituals, most notably the opening of the mouth ceremony. Now, this sacred rite was performed on the mummy, or sometimes a statue, of the deceased just before it was sealed in the tomb. Its purpose was to magically reanimate the body, restoring its ability to see, hear, speak, and eat and drink in the afterlife. It was a vital procedure, transforming the inert mummy into a living vessel for the spirit. During this ritual, specific spells and incantations were recited, many of which called directly upon Geb to play his part in this miraculous restoration. The connection to Geb was quite profound because, as the earth god, he had power over all things from the earth, including the minerals and metals used in the ritual implements, but more importantly, he was invoked to open the jaws of the deceased. In the pyramid texts, there's a powerful utterance that declares, "Geb has opened your mouth for you." This was not merely a symbolic request, it was a divine command, calling upon the very God of the earth to unlock the physical limitations of death. It was believed that Geb's authority could compel the jaw of the mummy to function once more, allowing the deceased to speak their name at the final judgment and to partake of the offerings left for them. This ritual invocation highlights Geb's role as a facilitator of resurrection. While Osiris was the ultimate ruler of the underworld, it was Geb who prepared the physical body for this new existence. His involvement was foundational. Without Geb opening the deceased's mouth, the spirit would be trapped in a silent, senseless form, unable to defend itself or sustain itself in the duat. The earth god's action was a critical first step on the path to eternal life. He was the one who unlocked the earthly vessel so that it could once again interact with the world. Therefore, Geb's role in the opening of the mouth ceremony cemented his importance in funerary religion. He was not just a remote, abstract deity, but a necessary force in the most crucial of posthumous rites. The priests, by calling his name, were channeling the power of the earth itself to breathe life back into the dead. This ritual demonstrates that Geb's link to the afterlife was intimate and active. He was the benevolent patriarch who, having received the deceased into his earthly embrace, then bestowed upon them the physical ability to begin their journey towards the eternal fields of Osiris. The ancient Egyptians envisioned the underworld, the duat, as a perilous realm. One powerful concept was that the way to the underworld was through the earth, into the body of Geb. Geb opening his jaws to swallow the dead is both daunting and protective. Texts like the Book of the Dead served as a map for this journey, and Geb was the master of that profound journey. After navigating the duat, the soul arrived at the Hall of Two Truths for judgment. The heart was weighed against Ma'at's feather, overseen by 42 divine judges and Osiris. As father of the gods, Geb held immense authority in this court, often as a chief arbiter. Geb, the original king of the earth, represented the testimony of the realm where the deceased lived. He settled disputes, even among gods like Horus and Set, lending unparalleled weight to his authority. Geb's role as a divine arbiter completed his connection to the afterlife journey, bridging life and death. Unlike many prominent gods in the Egyptian pantheon, such as Amun-Ra at Thebes or Ptah at Memphis, Geb appears to have had no major independent cult center dedicated solely to his worship. This lack of a grand temple, however, should not be mistaken for a lack of importance or reverence. In fact, Geb's worship was so widespread and fundamental that it was integrated into the very fabric of daily life and religious practice throughout Egypt. His temple was the earth itself, the fields, the quarries and the deserts. Every person who tilled the soil, built a home or dug a grave was in a sense performing an act of service within Geb's sacred domain, making his worship both personal and universal. Geb was honoured in countless local shrines and was included in the liturgies of temples dedicated to other gods, particularly those within the Heliopolitan Ennead. He was revered as the father of the gods, a respected elder whose presence was essential for contextualizing the divine family. In agricultural communities, his favor was sought before the planting season began, with farmers making small offerings to the ground to ensure the earth would accept their seeds and grant a bountiful harvest. These simple personal acts of piety were the bedrock of his worship, a constant acknowledgement of the people's direct reliance on the God beneath their feet for their very survival and prosperity. His worship was also deeply embedded in theological and cosmological contexts. Priests and scribes who studied the great creation myths paid homage to Geb as a cornerstone of the universe. In centers of learning like Heliopolis, His story was recounted, and his role in establishing the world was celebrated. His presence in divine tribunals, as seen in texts like the Book of the Dead, meant that he was a figure of authority to whom even the most powerful gods deferred. This form of veneration was intellectual and spiritual, honoring him not just as a provider of crops, but as a foundational principle of cosmic order and divine law, an integral part of the structure of reality. Therefore, the worship of Geb was pervasive rather than centralized. It was found in the humble offerings of a farmer, in the grand theological narratives of the priesthood, and in the solemn funerary rites for the dead. He was a god so omnipresent that a single temple could never contain him. The entire land of Egypt was his sanctuary, and every inhabitant was, in their own way, one of his devotees. This universal approach to his worship reflects his status as the very foundation of the Egyptian world, a god who was not just prayed to, but lived upon, a constant and ever-present divine force. The pharaoh was considered the earthly incarnation of Horus, but his right to rule was inherited from Geb. This connection was made explicit through the royal title Heir of Geb. By adopting this title, the pharaoh asserted a divine right to the throne. This title was rooted in the myth of Geb's own reign as the first king on earth. It legitimized his rule by framing it as the continuation of a divine plan. The concept of being Geb's heir had practical implications for how the pharaoh was perceived. It meant that the king was the ultimate steward of the land. Geb's influence on kingship ensured that he remained a figure of immense authority. Throughout the vast expanse of Egyptian history, from the Old Kingdom right through to the Ptolemaic and Roman periods, Geb remained a consistently honored and relevant figure. While the prominence of certain gods could wax and wane with the shifting political landscape, Geb's role as the fundamental earth god ensured his perpetual importance. In the earliest religious texts, the pyramid texts, he's already fully formed as a key deity, a protector of the deceased king and a source of royal legitimacy. His presence in these ancient scriptures cemented his place in the core of Egyptian religious thought, a position from which he would never be dislodged over the subsequent millennia. As Egyptian civilization evolved, so too did the ways in which Geb was honored. During the New Kingdom, when Egypt's empire was at its very height, the title Heir of Geb continued to be a powerful part of royal titulary, connecting the mighty pharaohs of this era to the primeval source of their power. His image was a common feature in the elaborate tomb decorations of the Valley of the Kings, most notably in the iconic scenes depicting the separation of earth and sky. These illustrations, painted on the ceilings and walls of burial chambers, were not just decoration. They were active spells intended to recreate the universe for the deceased, placing them within a cosmos defined by Geb's presence. Even as foreign rulers came to dominate Egypt, first the Greeks and then the Romans, the reverence for Geb persisted. The Greeks, who sought to understand Egyptian religion through the lens of their own mythology, identified Geb with their titan, Cronus. Like Geb, Cronus was a primeval ruler from an earlier generation of gods who was the father of the principal Olympian deities. This syncretism allowed for the continued worship and acknowledgement of Geb's role, albeit under a different name and interpretation. It demonstrates the universal appeal of an Earth Father figure and the deep-rooted nature of Geb's identity within the cultural consciousness of the Nile Valley. In summary, Geb's presence was an unwavering constant in the ever-changing world of ancient Egypt. He was honored in the earliest texts, celebrated in the grand art of the empire's golden age, and his identity was preserved even under foreign rule. His importance did not rely on a powerful priesthood or a grand temple complex, but on his undeniable and essential role in the Egyptian understanding of the world. As the foundation of the cosmos, the father of the gods, and the ancestor of kings, Geb was honored through the ages as an eternal and indispensable part of the divine landscape, as solid and enduring as the very earth he embodied. Geb's legacy as the foundational earth god of Egypt echoed through cultures that interacted with Egyptian traditions. When the Greeks, led by Alexander the Great, established their rule, they identified Geb with Cronus. Both were father figures associated with the earth. This ensured Geb's identity as an Earth Father was preserved. The image of earth and sky separation and the concept of a living earth, central to Geb, recurred in Western esoteric traditions. Geb's legacy as the Earth Father was adapted by different cultures. His story became part of our relationship with the earth, a testament to the Egyptian imagination. Centuries after the last temples to the Egyptian gods fell silent, Geb has found a new life in modern popular culture. The rediscovery of ancient Egypt sparked a global fascination. This has ensured that figures from the Egyptian pantheon, including Geb, have been reborn in countless new forms. He appears in literature, video games, and film. Geb has proven to be remarkably adaptable. His journey demonstrates that the power of his story remains as compelling and relevant as ever. The enduring fascination with Geb, both for historians and mythology enthusiasts, stems from his unique and fundamental position within the Egyptian pantheon. He is, at his core, a personification of an idea that is both simple and profoundly complex: the earth as a living, divine entity. In an age where humanity's relationship with the planet is a topic of critical importance, the ancient Egyptian concept of a benevolent Earth Father offers a compelling and resonant perspective. Geb represents a worldview where the land is not a resource to be exploited, but a sacred being to be respected, a divine relative upon whom all life depends. This idea feels remarkably modern and provides a rich field for contemplation. For historians and Egyptologists, Geb is a key that unlocks a deeper understanding of ancient Egyptian society. His connection to kingship, his role in funerary beliefs, and his place within the Heliopolitan creation myth reveal the intricate ways in which religion, politics, and the natural environment were interwoven. Studying Geb is not just about studying a single myth, it is about exploring the foundations of pharaonic law, the logic behind burial practices, and the cosmological framework that gave meaning to the universe. He is a central node connecting many different aspects of Egyptian culture, and every new insight into his character sheds more light on the civilization that revered him for millennia. For lovers of mythology, Geb's story is simply a great narrative. It contains all the elements of a timeless epic: a passionate love affair, a heart-wrenching separation, a family of powerful and conflicting children, and a golden age of peace. The imagery associated with him, the reclining earth god, the weeping that forms the rivers, the laughter that causes earthquakes, is both poetic and powerful. His gentle, passive nature provides a fascinating contrast to the more dynamic and aggressive gods, making him a unique and memorable character. His story is a powerful reminder that myths are not just fanciful tales, but sophisticated tools for explaining the world in a deeply human and emotional way. In conclusion, Geb remains a figure of immense significance because he embodies a timeless and universal connection. He is the link between humanity and the ground beneath our feet, the patriarch of a divine family whose dramas shaped a civilization, and the stable foundation upon which a complex vision of the cosmos was built. From his role as the first king of Egypt to his modern-day appearances in popular culture, Geb's story continues to be told. He is the ever-present god, as silent, as powerful, and as essential today as he was thousands of years ago, a testament to the enduring legacy of ancient Egypt and its profound understanding of the world.